strange. It's like everyone kind of started doing the remote thing, and then I think people are coming back into the office.
Absolutely. What the remote thing was real difficult.
It was super difficult and not good for people, I don't think.
Yeah.
Mentally.
It takes the organic process away
Mm-hmm.
and the mentoring. So the mentoring is part of it that I just lost sight of, during that remote working. And the sense of value and not really direction, but just kind of helping people through their day was lost.
Yeah. The family.
Because I would get tired. I didn't want to be on the video.
Oh, I know. It's not the same.
Make my brain hurt.
Yeah, it's not the same.
Are you having more of your employees come back in?
Oh, they're all in.
Okay.
We only stopped going into the office for a few weeks.
Ah, okay.
I was not like super scared about the whole thing ever.
Yeah.
Like, this is not to sound cocky. It just was like I feel like media hyped up a lot of stuff.
Absolutely.
Yeah. It's still it's still kind of weird. Like, but I mean, there's a lot of remote work happening still, and I don't know if we're going to end up with kind of a hybrid of like, some people are going to be back in the office. We ended up in a weird position where we started this new company during COVID.
Yep.
And we started off remote. And so basically our team is distributed, Wimberley, San Marcos, Houston, Dallas.
Oh, wow.
San Antonio. And so
really
we got
hard.
a couple people in Austin, but it would be really hard now at this point to get everybody back in. But we couldn't at this point. So
seems like there's certain industry that has latched on, like tech, right? That they allow those guys to work remotely. But as far as I can tell, architect or design wise, most everybody I know is all back in the office.
Yeah. We definitely are too. Yeah.
There's no replacement for sitting around a table looking at a set of plans, whether you're design or in the construction phase, of just being able to look at something together and look somebody in the eye and say, hey, what do you think about this? How are we going to handle this?
For sure.
It's just not the same on Teams or Zoom or Google.
No, I mean, it's such a tactile thing.
Yeah.
You have to be in the office together.
Talking about technology.
Yes.
I'm going to take us in a quick different direction.
Do it.
So just yesterday, my middle daughter is in design school in Arkansas.
Okay.
Okay, so she's in studio right now and it's kicking her butt. So she's getting ready. She's working on her last project. And, we get text messages from her at 1 a.m.
Oh, yeah.
She's staying up all night working her butt off. Well, she had her first review of her last project she's going to turn in on Monday. And Grant, she's been, she didn't do as well as she wanted to on the first two projects. So she's been busting her ass.
Yeah.
And so she turned in the project Monday morning, did the review, and then Tuesday morning, her teacher got her outside and said, hey, I just wanted to talk to you. Did you use AI on your project?
Wow. Yeah.
And my daughter was like, no. So she called us yesterday, like really upset. She's like, she's accusing me of using AI. And I'm like, really? Is that even a thing now, like in school?
Yeah, it is.
And so what do you guys think about AI? And is that, have you seen that? I mean, I'm oblivious to that part of it when it gets into design I know it's out there. But what have you seen in your specific fields, and how are you guys thinking about that?
It's not good. I had a potential client send me a deck, an investment, deck that you put together, that normally they're coming to us and saying, we need you guys to put the visuals together. That they already had visuals on there, and he had done it himself, and he's not a designer, and they looked great. I was like, who did these for you? And he said, I just fiddled around with AI.
Huh. Really?
It took a while. He's admitted, it took a while. But, it's definitely, I think it's a competition for us, and it's going to make things harder to sell your own product. Do you feel that?
Yeah, kind of. I don't know about the competitive part of it, but because there's this contextual or this there's this acknowledgement of context and local appropriateness that I don't believe that AI can do
yet.
And so we've had a little bit of experience with that, and mostly it's clients coming in with feasibility studies, and there's an AI group already out here, and you can put in location, and the AI will, whatever that means. I don't even know what that means. This thing will tell you how to optimize land use. Right. So they're saying you can get this much office, this much, and then it'll do 3-dimensional, it outputs a really interesting matrix as well as like a site plan.
Okay.
And it's close. Like it's real interesting and it's close, but it also doesn't compute the adjacencies of property, of context, of trees, of like local neighborhood spirit. And then I was going like I think I was on Instagram, and there is this post. I don't know who it was from, but it was a post about stadiums of the future from AI, and it was like big arenas, and they were wacky, man. And I don't know how they did that or whatever, but I was thinking, I just can't. Like I couldn't see a community wanting it to adopt it. And again, it was like this contextual inappropriateness. And it seems like that maybe it can be programmed at some point, I imagine.
It's tricky. I think it's dangerous and tricky. It takes out the soul of what we do. And you know me, Jeremy, I'm like a hands-on, get my tool belt out, be in the grit of a project.
I don't know how they input soul.
Soul, it's in the spirit. Well, you said the word spirit. There's no way a robot can capture the essence and spirit of a community.
Yeah. The other thing that I like parallel it with is Pinterest. Mm-hmm. We'll get clients. They have these huge Pinterest boards, and they're just grabbing, right? And it's our job to edit and refine and peel it down to this essential criteria that is our clients, right? And I see that sort of as AI.
Absolutely. I was thinking that initially too, that Pinterest makes things harder for designers in some ways because it creates expectations from the client that are less curated. Yeah. And you end up copy and paste, and paste. And it takes out the artistic value of what people like you and I bring to the table.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's good. I mean, it's good as a visual, but you have to be real specific about, it's not the whole thing, but it's this little component that we're interested in. So I don't know.
In some ways, it's telling people what they want to have rather than letting their imagination be the anchor.
And there's a there's a whole other process too that you can get clients. We all know these folks that are just looking for the bottom dollar.
Yeah.
Right.
That's what I was going to say.
And those bottom dollar folks are going to be interested in AI because they can get it done quick, and they don't really care about the process and the context. And I don't really want to work with those folks.
Exactly. Yeah. I always say people, if a client, because my first year of my children's first year of life, they came to my office, and because I was nursing them. Yeah. And I look back and I'm like, how did I do that? I would be typing and rocking Bear on my foot like this, and keeping him entertained. And I would say, if a potential client or client comes in and they don't like kids and dogs, they're probably not people I want to work with anyway. So I just kind of became unapologetic about having my kid or dog. Now the dog comes to the office, but it is important as any business to curate who are the right people to work with.
Absolutely. Yeah. It's difficult work, and we talk about it all the time. It's they're interviewing us, but we're also interviewing them.
100%.
And so if it doesn't click, if there's these red flags that go off, and it's going to be somewhat of a complex project, and if this conversation is difficult right now, then it's only going to get harder.
It only gets harder.
So you might as well not step into that.
Yeah, for sure. Absolutely.
Sometimes you have to, just because. But
this little thing called overhead.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah. Yeah, that's actually the hardest part about scaling, I think, is that, taking on projects that you're like, if I were smaller, would I take this on?
Yeah, that's a good segue of a question to have for you.
Okay.
And I've always known you in my head because, again, this is the first time we really had a chance to talk. But I've always known you to be a real soulful person, and you maneuver through life. And again, tell me if I'm wrong, in a direction that is atypical. Atypical, because you're moving through. It seems like you move through phases based on just a joy, right? And interaction and joy, and I'm sure there's a number of other things, and you named it family, and these things around you that make you happy. And I also feel that there's not this overarching burden to follow this linear passage or this linear way of doing things that are, we can call it corporate. And I find that real interesting because you're so successful and people know who you are. Not that that's important, but you're sought after in a way that is a real fantastic thing to, like, it's this fantastic aura because you've created this thing of, joy, and you're just doing what you love. And so when you say overhead and, it brings me back to think that, oh yeah, she has that burden too. That's a serious weight that I deal with every day, especially now. And so how do you navigate that part of it while trying to scale and trying to keep that self-identity?
It's a fantastic question that I probably think about on the daily.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, thank you for what you said. It's really sweet. And it makes me want to tear up, but I'm going to refrain. I think I do feel everything. And my team says they love this about me, but I kind of wear my heart on my sleeve.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of that comes from the pain that I've had over, I lost my mom when I was 10 and had issues, betrayal with my dad. And, you could just keep going on, and we can get to that later. But I think because of all that pain, I am who I am.
Yeah.
And it's all made me stronger. But it's also made me a very honest person and kind of a no bullshit person too, because it's like we just need to be ourselves with each other. Managing my team is one of my favorite things to do. Yeah. So keeping my team feeling like family and creating a culture where people want to come to work, they want to do what they're doing. Yeah. That's key and paramount. How do you scale that? You find the right people.
Yeah.
And then you find the right clients. And that, I think, comes with a level of maturity and age. And, you grow into that and you get better at seeing the red flags earlier. Yeah. And growing in overhead, our company has grown exponentially actually since COVID. And since I've had children, which is kind of a funny thing. Yeah. I thought when I had kids, it could take away from my career, but it just taught me to trust people and delegate better and lean on my team harder and lean on the village. And so it's actually pushed me into growth. Yeah. And it's a core value. Like I saw my parents work hard, and Joey and I pride ourselves in like making sure that the kids are in our lives. It's not we don't change everything for them. They're a part of our lives. We want them to see what we're doing. So they're going to be coming over to my office later tonight to help me do stuff to set up for Austin studio tour. We're hosting some artists, but I think, Mark, like the word joy, it's just key to life. And if we're not happy doing what we're doing, we got to shift. Yeah. And I am a little atypical and nonlinear, and sometimes that feels design is a fluffy
subjective
industry. Yeah. Yes. And then sometimes the snobbery of it drives me crazy.
Oh, yeah.
And so I think that is something that I struggle with. Like, we're not out to get published in the best publications. We're not doing it for the fame. We're not doing it for the fluff. Yeah. We're doing it because we love connection with people, and we love like the curation process and the outcome.
Yeah. We that's a great answer. We're rebranding our office, and that'll come out sometime first quarter next year. But it's purposefully to take my name out of it. I've always had an issue with my name being there, right?
Yeah, I hear you. I feel the same.
And it was me just not being creative enough to think of something else whenever I got thrown into this. But it has become real important because there's a core value around what the name will be, and it's not the individual, it's the people. And I think that there's this level of normalcy or doing things in our industry that has this very linear approach, and I'm real interested in breaking it. And I haven't really I always talk about it, but I don't know that I have that pitch down yet. But I feel like you're in the similar vein, whether you know it or not, or you see it or not. That you're in the similar vein of I'm gonna hit that parallelism with traditional, business mentality, but I'm also going to diverge, and because it's right. And
The diverge feels risky.
the diverge, yeah, right. And you may not know it, that it's satisfactory in a way that it could be profitable or it could be rewarding, but you do it anyway.
And and profitable and rewarding. It's like, which is more valuable at the end of the day? And if you're doing the things in a way that keep people happy, then it's like, I always believe the money will come to cover that overhead.
Yeah, right.
It's funny. I was just having this conversation with one of my newest employees about our name, like Kim Lewis Designs, and I told her, I started the company 11 years ago, and it was that the name is out of laziness. Because I was working on the TV show, and then my first client was Jewel, the singer-songwriter. And she was like, will you come to my house? And I was like, yeah, I guess I need to start a company. I'm thinking, this is back when I lived in LA. What's the name going to be? I'm like, I had no time to think about it. So Kim Lewis Designs. It's like the most boring, lazy, unthoughtful, and now it's like, man, yeah, how do you scale a name like that? You don't. I mean,
well, it's done all the time. The architecture and interiors is all name based.
Yeah.
It's like attorneys, and it's so.
Yeah.
I don't know.
I love that you're rebranding though. That's good for your people. And
yeah, I mean, I always try to think or tell myself that I'm not attached to stuff, and I think that names are like something that you can shed. But when I'm doing it, the name is not the thing that I found that I enjoy, but it's the logo. I really like our logo. And I'm like, oh, it's got to be better than this, right? And so it's been this interesting journey, personally, for me to let go.
Yeah, that's good.
Yeah.
One of the ways we pivoted during COVID was to start doing branding for companies. And my background's actually marketing, which is funny.
Yeah.
But I love, branding is storytelling. It's like, at the end of the day, so is design and so is architecture.
Yeah.
Like, we were trying to tell a story with our
job. Absolutely. Yeah.
And the brand, and so many of our projects, like restaurants, they don't have a name yet, or, so I love being hand in hand in that, because you get to, it's like the whole puzzle piece, the whole, it's like everything is supposed to go together.
It's got to tell a story. It's got to be, the thread has to be similar.
I love branding. It's definitely a fun, kind of another side hustle that we started doing under our company.
Well, if you think about it, whether we're creating a logo or not, we're branding companies. We're branding companies that create a soul that is identical to the people, that is living in this place. But we brand it with materiality. We brand it with procession through the space. We brand it with personality.
For sure. Yeah.
So I think you're doing it anyway.
Thanks. Yeah. It's funny you said we're not corporate. I think that's you're right on the money. I've actually turned away projects that felt like they weren't gonna satisfy the need to be extra creative. It's like, I just don't want to be doing it if it doesn't feel right to who we are.
Yeah. How do you I also we talk a lot about like that camaraderie between not only the owner and the designer, but the designer and the contractor, like that team. And that's where Jeremy and I have worked together quite a bit, and I know y'all have worked together quite a bit. And so talking about the typical way of doing things where we go into our vacuum, we draw, we create, and we have this conversation with the owner, and then we dish out drawings to be priced and built. Like that's just a broken model that we probably all agree with, but it's still a part of our industry. And when you try to fuse that collaboration in a real way that allows there to be transparency and openness, and like you come and design and I'll come and talk about means and methods. There's some legality there that you have to be watchful of, but how do you navigate that?
Mm-hmm. It's all about relationship at the end of the day, and education. I mean, I think there's a misconception. I mean, we're in a men's industry, right? First of all, so being a woman in that can be challenging. Being like when people call us decorators, I'm like,
yeah,
literally,
yeah.
We will not be working together. That I think if you showing up and knowing your drawing and learning, continuously learning to draw in a manner in which it can be built, and being responsible and accountable to having ideas of how to build it, even though you're not the one doing it, how to engineer it in a way that's value engineered for the client, but also just showing up and talking with the contractor. There is a lot of ego in our industry, and I just don't have space and time for it. Oh my gosh, I will break that barrier down so hard, so fast. We're all here at the table to do a good job in a means that the client can afford. And let's do that together. Like it's literally needs. I advocate really hard for a good designer builder relationship. Jeremy, I think you can probably attest to that.
Absolutely.
It's not about I drew it, you build it. It's we. I remember walking into. I mean, when I was working for Extreme Makeover Home Edition, we lived in our studio was in Hollywood. You're looking, you're already, when you go into like Podunk, Arkansas, they already have this conception of who you are because you're from Hollywood.
Right.
I would literally stomp my boot and say, I'm not from Hollywood. I'm from Texas. Let's sit down and do this together. I'm going to make you look good. Let's make each other look good, Yeah. And so I kind of just I don't let that happen. When it starts happening, you correct it.
Yeah.
It's like, no, we're in this together.
Yeah.
And if I've presented a drawing to you that isn't necessarily buildable, then let's redraw it. I'm good.
Yeah.
I've got no ego in this.
So as you scale, so I often find that is a very innate personality in someone that just wants to squash whatever that is. And it's hard to do, right? It takes a certain level of confidence to walk in a room of especially contractors that are already, ready to battle it up and take that on, right? And just create a neutral atmosphere. So when you scale, and is that something that you try to mentor constantly with your team?
100%.
Because we do all the time.
100%.
It's tough.
Yeah, it's tough. Yeah. My newest employee, she graduated from UT in May, and she's awesome. But it's a personality trait that you have to look for. Mm-hmm. And it's in one of our interview questions is, how do you handle a contractor that's pushing back on you?
Yeah.
So let's just...
What's the answer?
The answer is with confidence, but you have to know what you're doing. So I always tell my team, walk in there and show them that you know what you're doing.
Yeah.
We're not here to just paint a pretty picture and, put out some candles. Show them your section drawing and also be open to feedback and invite them
that
to
humility.
the table to say, hey, this is how I think we should build it. What do you think? Mm-hmm. That's so powerful. Mm-hmm. That's the answer. It's a team effort. You're working together. Other thing I find so funny is I know you can relate to this. We spend all these hours and this client's money to put together all these 3D drawings and, pictures. And I I can't tell you how many times that hasn't like gotten to the subcontractor, where it's like, you haven't seen what you're trying to build.
Yeah.
You walk to the site and you're like, how? Let me just print that out and tape it to the wall for you. You need to see the puzzle.
Yeah.
I tell clients, like,
black and white shouldn't even happen anymore. Right?
Yeah.
I mean, the drawing.
It's inexcusable.
I know.
That's a failure on the contractor part. Right?
Yes.
It really
Well,
is.
now it
To not
also could
share
be
all
on
information.
the design team too, right? Because there could be, we should be on site and we should understand what those trades are looking at, and if we should realize it quickly. Like I was telling our office the other day, because we have this BIMX thing that we could give everyone, and it's got the drawings and the sections and the model, and it's like this fabulous thing. It's not, you can't necessarily build from it, but you get the intent, and you get the intent of the drawings and the set all at once. Like this is awesome.
Yeah.
But they forget all the time to send that out. I'm like, why isn't this a thing?
Yeah.
You should buy iPads for the contractor and just give it. So here it is.
Well, contractors are slow to develop and adopt new technology.
Yes.
Right? And we've talked about technology in the construction world and where that's going. But it's one of the statistics that surprised me is that there's not a lot of new people getting into construction and getting into the trades.
Oh,
Yeah.
Right? It's not as much
in
as
the
what
trades, yeah.
in the trades. And so you've got a lot of these, like me, getting to be old. When we remember sepia machines and rolling out a big set of plans. But absolutely, the more information that's shared. Yeah, the collaboration thing, I'm definitely passionate about that because, Mark and I've got, and I mean, I could even argue back when we were working together at Torchy's, it just, there's a lot of benefit from it. And there's a lot of like really true success that comes from the whole team collaborating. I do argue that it requires the owner to have the same mindset as well, right?
Yeah.
Because that's a lot of the times where a lot of the adversarial relationship comes in is kind of how the owner has set up the project and what their expectations are.
Yeah.
But yeah,
then you could say, architect, you got to have that conversation up front. Here's how this process is going to work, and we'll set that up at the very beginning. And a lot of the developers that we work with, they're just going to march through and dictate and do and expect, and you're going to have to change that on the upfront. So
it's interesting, like starting every project, if you were to sit everybody down, the owner, the contractor, the architect, design, everybody would agree I think would agree kind of what the goals of the project are. And everybody wants to do the right thing and have a successful project. But it seems like when you get into it, that's where the real work starts of like collaboration and having an open mind, being humble, right? Communicating, yeah.
Or there's no standard for that, right? And everyone is different, and so you have to go forth with the standard, but you also have to treat them as individuals, and that's hard. It's difficult.
It is.
It takes more work.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, it's very challenging. I was really proud of Caroline. We were like moving something for a bakery we did in Houston, and this guy was like, "Would they hire the tiniest crew of women? Like, what? Just made some comment like that. That you're like, aren't we past that? But we're not.
Yeah,
We're not past that.
No.
We're still fighting through that as women."
Yeah.
And she goes, "But we're doing it, aren't we?" And she's my youngest.
Yeah.
I mean, she just looked
That's
at him
awesome.
straight in the eye and goes,
Good.
"But we're doing it, aren't we?" And she's tiny. She's like, they were like, "Are you Kim's sister?" You're like, "Can you stop with the inappropriate commentary?" Like, we're doing it. We're here. We're hustling. Our sleeves are rolled up. We're in it. But it is like getting out to the site is critical. And I find that it's like, that's something that I push my team to be very present on the site. Because it's easy to get kind of trapped in the office doing drawings.
Yeah. The new younger folks, they just like to stare at this machine and not go out of those boundaries. And it's sometimes hard to get them out of the seat. Like we've got multiple projects in construction, even though it's not yours, go look at it.
Yeah.
Meet those, ask the trade, what do you think of these drawings? And you'll get an earful.
Yeah, it'll tell you. It's critical that's where you learn the most is really on the job site. I mean, that's where I learned everything I knew. Like I didn't get a degree in design.
Yeah, I'm real curious about how you got how'd you get
Started.
How are you?
Yeah. I was working for a furniture manufacturer in Austin as their marketing, Four Hands.
Yeah.
Yeah. As their marketing director. And we were in High Point Trade Show. And in comes the producers from ABC Extreme Makeover Home Edition. This would have been like 2005, I think. And they asked us if we would donate furniture to the show. And I was watching the show. I loved the show. You remember it?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
And there are some people that I'm dating myself. There's some people now that are like, I never watched that show. I'm like, you're too young.
Yeah. That's right. That was big.
Yeah, it was big at the time. And we donated furniture. I went to Oklahoma, like stayed up all night, helped them finish installing all the furniture in the house. And the next day, the executive producer was like, we want to hire you. Like, I think they just saw that I had a ton of energy and I could stay up all night. But yeah, I just fit right in. And they're like, we'll call you this summer. And, you hear that and you never know. And I got the call when I was literally walking down the aisle to get married. So the joke is that he married me and the show that day. And that marriage failed. So, I mean, it didn't work. But yeah, I moved to LA like within 3 weeks of getting married. Dropped everything, took a Penske truck, did the first build in Alaska.
Oh, really?
Were you nervous about the first one?
I was. The honest truth is I had never designed a room in my life.
Yeah.
And the executive producer was like, we want to hire you to design rooms on a, 17 million, ratings like show.
Jeez.
So the whole like fake it till you make it,
Yeah.
I understood that after that. You just learned. We put together like a football field in Alaska in 4 days. I mean, just the unimaginable, the deadlines, the like insane hours.
Mm-hmm.
I can't tell you how many times like I used a ream of copy paper as a pillow in an RV for a 30-minute nap and then got up and kept going for another 40 hours.
After you had finished those, did you have a big break until the next one, or it just kept with that pace?
Mm-hmm.
Wow.
It kept with that pace. And after 2 years, they put me in charge of the design team. So I had the same schedule as Ty Pennington. Like I would go from one house to the next. I mean, bouncing.
Wow.
Mm-hmm. And we would go, people always say, you didn't build those in a week. I'm like, no, we actually built them in 5 days.
Yeah.
Because you have to move everything out and move everything back in. Yeah. So you only have 5 days, 106-hour build schedule.
Wow. That's crazy.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
You would love it. You know, like we were in the very forefront of like the quick dry concrete for foundations.
Yeah.
And I mean, that was, and then prefabricating walls. Like this was, a long time ago. And people were figuring out ways to like sort of build off site and bring it on.
How did you qualify the contractors to make sure that they would be able to execute, right? Because I mean, or did you ever have a situation where you didn't get it done in 5 days?
We did in Baltimore. But we bit off more than we could chew. And we did a 12,000 square foot girls' home.
Wow.
12,000 square foot. We would have made it, but there was a storm and the walls, the roof was not closed in. And we had done the walls as sort of prefabricated insulated walls. So everything got wet. And that added 1 day to our schedule. 1 day.
Why were the timelines so crazy?
So crazy, because television producers are crazy. Dang. And it was expensive. You've got a crew of 75 going into, so an extra day added $1 million for them.
Oh, wow. Just in production and people.
Production, crews, directors.
Outside of the construction.
Absolutely. We had 75. It was a circus. Like I was literally traveling with a circus.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, so we would shoot 25 homes roughly a season. And the season wasn't a full 12-month schedule. So sometimes we would have a break between seasons that was like a week hiatus. Wow. And sometimes it was 2 months hiatus.
How long did you do this?
7 years.
Wow.
Whoa.
Yeah.
Man.
How long did you get to design each house? Like, did you know what you were doing like 3, 4, 5 houses out?
Yes, definitely. So when I became the lead, we would get the family's casting information, and I would travel to that site with our construction manager, and we would meet with the contractor, and that person had already been vetted.
Yeah.
And so, but that was usually 6 weeks out. So 6 weeks was the full like design drawings. I would sit with a local architect. You would love this. Like that's where I learned. I mean, I would sit with an architect, and the builders were always tempted. Before I started the role, they would just bring one of their house plans, and they would say, let's fit that family into this house.
Yeah.
I was the person that was like, we're not here to just be mundane. I want something. I don't want gable on gable on gable on gable. Like, I'm so tired of that look. Like, we're not here to do that. We're here to do something unique and for this family. What does this family want? What is their dream? Our role was to become like, get into their minds, and they never knew we existed. Like we were these little elves behind the scenes, and I created an interview document to get into their heads. Like it was 20 pages, and just fill it out, just dream on paper for me. And I got that information. I'd get on a plane and I'd start drawing. But I would sit with an architect for 8 hours, and I would draw the plan, sketch what I thought we should do, sit with him or her for 8 hours, and then I would fly out, and they would create the drawing in a couple of days, like draft the whole set. And then I would mark it up. But, you know, a lot of families we were helping had medical needs. I mean, we helped a little boy with like brittle bones disease, you know, just like it. So there were certain needs that a family had. And so we had to consider all of that. But it was 6 weeks in, you know, right as soon as I got the drawings from the architect, we ordered the cabinets, ordered the plumbing fixtures, you know, so we were just constantly. But once we got on the ground, it was all like, you picked all the furniture on the ground in 5 days, all the paint colors. I'd walk around and go bam, 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 bam. And that's one of the reasons I'm so bold with color, because I got this incredible exercise of seeing the color go on the wall. I remember walking through, it was Brooklyn, and we ended up helping, like, you know, you'd get there in the spirit and the essence of what everyone's doing, and people got so into it. People always ask, like, well, how did you get past inspections? The inspector would usually pick up a hammer and fix whatever needed to be fixed. Because the essence
that's true.
You know, it's like you're in it, you're in that blue shirt, you're feeling like, man, we're like really helping people here. So they usually would help fix the problem, you know, and we did vertical building, like plumbers down below. You know, we called it vertical building because the trades were literally stacked on top of each other. Plumbers down here roughing in, electricians roughing the sconce above him. Over here, someone's running insulation. I mean, vertical building. So when trades can't be in the house together or can't be in the project together, oh, you want to ruffle Kim's feathers? I've got stories to tell you. You know, you're just like, I've seen it. You can be in that house together. You can work together, you know? And so, and a lot of builders, Jeremy, you would love this. A lot of builders, their feedback after working with us was they could cut their schedule by 30%. Because they learned, like, we had it down by that point, you know, how to build quickly, how to get your guys in there and out. And people always said, well, I bet it's not built well. Yeah, it was. Our punch list looked the same as anybody's punch list most of the time. You know, but we would lean on the contractor that, like, the local citizens and mayor. I mean, you always found a contractor that, like, had the right trades to pull into the project. And it's cool how stuff always worked out. Like, I remember we lost our countertop company. I can't remember which house it was. And we were in the thick of it. I mean, we were day 3, and the countertop company pulled out because they decided they didn't want to donate them. I walked out of the house, or out of the project, and I was like, oh my gosh, what are we going to do? What are we going to do? So I, like, walked to the rail of where all the volunteers are out there just cheering you on. And I was like, I need their energy to, like, fill me back up because I'm feeling super defeated. So I walk up to them, and some volunteer goes, hey, is there anything y'all need? Can we help? And I was like, man, you know, just lost our countertop company. Like, I don't know what I'm going to do. He goes, my brother owns a countertop company. Let me call him. Picks up his phone. I got you countertops. And you're just like, yeah, let's go. Let's do this. You know, so the spirit, you know, I always said, like, I saw such a beautiful side of our country. I saw the good, like, good people wanting to help people. And it was really beautiful. And just like, I don't watch the news. And I never have, you know, I'm just, let's talk about the good. There's a lot of it out there.
That's real interesting.
One thing I wanted to mention, which I think is interesting about what you're talking about, every one of those projects, you guys had this vision and this energy and this, like, mission, right? And I think that's a huge part. I mean, obviously the right people, but that everybody was bought into this really aggressive mission. And you had people reaching out, what can we do? What can we do, right? And I think that adds a lot to the success of a extreme project like that.
Yeah.
And that, so how do you bring that in, a little bit of that to every project?
It's funny you say that, because my role in this TV show was in a super predicament. I had producers in the ivory tower in Hollywood pushing me to do insane things, and I had builders on this side saying, "I can't do that. I can't do that." And I had our construction guys and our carpenters saying, "We only have so much time, Kim. We're tired. Like, how do we do this?" And the only thing I could ever, the only way I could ever get people to agree on something was if it was about the mission and the family.
Oh, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
It's like, no, but this person, like, this would change their lives.
Yeah.
So, like, okay, producers now off my back because they feel the story.
Yeah.
They're buying in. Builder is buying in because he can see it and feel it. So it's like it always had to stay about the mission.
Yeah.
And it's not about the ego or the the ratings or the
Yeah.
It's about the mission. And so I think, how do you bring that into projects? Obviously, our projects on the daily aren't, as crazy as, helping a little boy with little brittle bones. But it does, there has to be a story that everyone can anchor and hold on to. Like, there has to be a reason for doing what you're doing. And I think most of the time that reason needs to be something that's from a heart and the soul.
Mm-hmm.
And that's why the corporate stuff is hard. It's like, what good is this doing?
Mm-hmm.
It's like the projects that you're doing, if that's changing the essence, the environment, offering a neighborhood something really beautiful for community, that's the mission, right? And then that's kind of like, this is why we do what we do.
Yeah, yeah, very true. You, as you were talking, how you started was, well, I didn't have an education on this, and then I started thinking, you did. You had the best education.
Yeah.
And then I was remembering, like Malcolm Gladwell, he says, okay, well, you're able to get to the top of your game in 10,000 hours. Like there's a amount of hours, and seems fairly accurate, but it's based on his data. And the amount of those 7 years that you crammed in, all of that time, all of that work, that's why you can excel and not necessarily push, but inspire people to find this thing, right? And you can probably bring that into your office and inspire your staff and inspire your clients, and that's real effective when young folks come into an office. They see that because that's atypical, and so to mentor that type of mentality in a designer is pretty remarkable.
Thank you. Yeah. We it's funny you say that. I was told by several architects, man, your job is kind of like taking the architecture exam over and over and over and over, because it was like 8 hours drawing a house, let's go.
Yeah.
3 days later, 8 hours drawing a house, let's go.
That's so critical to learning.
That's one thing I pride myself on, is like I make quick decisions and we don't sway.
Our world is sometimes slow, right? And we're like, let's mull over 80 million different colors. And no, just go.
Yeah, no, let's just go. It's gonna be fine.
Yeah.
You're like, no, it'll be fine.
Yeah.
Yeah. I love that you said that. My team definitely when you're hiring someone new, they're like, should I go work for a small firm or should I go work for a big firm?
Mm-hmm.
I'm like, you're gonna learn more when you come work for me.
Yeah, absolutely.
Because you're gonna be a part of every single part of that project. Yeah. And when you leave my firm, you could probably go start your own.
Yeah. Yeah, right.
It's your choice. Yeah. Do you want to be a part of the whole thing, or do you want to do, a track? And if you want to do a track, there's nothing wrong with that.
Yeah.
But if you come work for me, you're gonna be able to do everything.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. It's fun. I mean, I learned a lot on the other thing about learning a lot in that environment was being open to receive. That was the other thing, is like, I don't know how to draw that roof line. Will you teach me? Mm-hmm. It's like, and I think sometimes that is, it's what's the word? jarring. It almost like dismantles someone's ego at the table because they're like,
Sure.
oh, she's
let me
here to
teach
learn.
Yeah.
And it's like, and it wasn't me manipulating them. It was me like, I really want to learn, you know? And so I did get to sit and learn from the best of the best architects around the whole country. And what a gift that was. That was my education.
Back before, what'd you say, 2004?
2005.
Who were you then? What were you looking?
Well, I went to A&M, studied my degrees in journalism. Like that's where you're like, I can write a dang good email. I don't know. It was I love writing. So I did, you know, I feel like why are we pressure our children to figure out what they want to be when they're 18?
Oh, it's crazy.
It's absolutely crazy.
Or who they are.
Yeah. I remember sitting at the computer looking up at my dad, Daddy, what should I major in? And he literally said, well, you love writing. It's like A, B, C, D, you know, pick. You love writing. How about journalism? Okay. Like, so that
was me. Yeah.
Yeah. I loved A&M. That's where I went. And then I moved to Austin, and I actually worked for T3 ad agency because my degree was marketing. And I do love graphics and branding. So I worked for them for a year, and I was editing Dell catalogs. And I'm like, this is not fun. I was like, that skews wrong. Okay, I cannot do this for the rest of my life. I needed to be out, not in a computer and, you know, not in an office. And so I went to work for Four Hands. But, you know, who was I? I was ambitious. When you lose a parent, you just become strong fast. And I was self-sufficient and always a go-getter. My dad would tell me, you should be the first to the office and the last one to leave. And years later, he said, Kimbo, you took that too far. Like, you're in the office until 3 a.m. I don't think that's what I meant, you know. But my dad was an attorney. He owned his own company. I learned business from him. I started working at his firm when I was 12. Straightening the law library books, you know, and I did that for 30 minutes. And I was like, what's next? Let's go. Learned how to type on a typewriter, you know, and I was like dictating petitions for divorce and running them to the courthouse at age 12, you know. And so I think my work ethic came from him. I've always had that. And I think that's probably the executive producers probably saw that in me and gave me a chance at something I had never actually done before. My passion for design came from Four Hands. I mean, I've always loved art. I think it's in us, right? Like, if you're creative, you're creative. And I loved painting growing up. I loved dancing. Dancing was my therapy. My grief counseling was the studio. So I learned that movement and like art was sort of what made me feel alive. Yeah. And so that was always who I was. And then Extreme Makeover just kind of like blossomed me into this like crazy. My nickname was Kim Possible. You know, and every
that should be your office name.
Yeah, there's my new brand, Kim Possible. No, but it is. I did kind of develop. And my dad taught me this too. Like, just don't take no for an answer. Yeah. So it's like you get a no, you just keep going. Keep going. You might get 20 no's till you get a yes. Yeah. So I had, you know, that kind of work ethic, and I think that's what's kept me pushing. You know, and then I did want a family eventually, but I was married for 7 years, and he cheated on me, and so it all fell apart. He was living in LA while I was traveling, and you know, you just time apart. Yeah, sure. Was bad for both of us. Yeah. But I was like off, you know, doing my career and living this incredible existence, and we had an amazing little bungalow in Venice. But his, you know, and the guilt in that for me was like, did I cause this? But the reality is, he was who he was, and the actions, I couldn't take on the guilt and shame of that. Yeah, like I had to push that away, and it took years to get to that place. But I became single at 30 when I thought I'd be having a family, and it was completely crippling at the time. Yeah, I imagine. You know, so moved back to Texas. That's why I moved back to Texas. Like, I needed to be in a safer space with family and something that felt more familiar. And LA's a tough place to live. Yeah. You know, it's like fend for yourself. You know. Yeah, beat the next person. Dude. Or outdo the next person. Exactly. Yeah. Especially in that industry. Yeah. And I was tired and had lost all sense of balance in life. And so, yeah, I came back here and started my company and did it solo for years. Like I would work out at coffee shops,
Yeah.
and all the samples would be in my trunk.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I would keep buying coffee to like support the place that I was sitting. I probably spent enough on coffee.
Still
I
living
could
off
have
that
just gotten
caffeine.
an office, Yeah, and I remember like my first employee was someone that worked for Costantina's Silestone, and she was like, "Can I come work for you?" And I was like, it's like the idea of hiring someone hadn't even come to me. Who'd I call? I called my dad, and I was like, what did I do? How do you know if you're ready to hire someone? He said, Kimbo, you don't. You just do it.
Mm-hmm.
The money will come.
Yeah, you figure it out.
And that's like, it's in some ways as business owners, aren't we sort of just like always doing gut checks too?
Mm-hmm.
There's a gut that you have to have.
Absolutely.
Yeah. I remember my first hire because I was teaching at A&M and one of the students graduated and he said, hey, can I come and work? I was like, well, I don't know if I can pay you. Are you going to?
Yeah.
I said, you can't work for free. What are you talking about? And I eventually, I did hire him because he's awesome. And he still is, but just figured it out.
Yeah.
And every time that we do hire someone, I have that same feeling like, I don't know.
Yeah.
Hope I can pay you. It sounds so crazy, but it's true.
Yeah. So that's pretty wonderful.
Yeah.
So is that a good segue into what you're working on now?
Yeah, I think so. I said I lost my mom. I'm coming up on the year that of how old she was when she passed, 43. In March, I turned 43. And I think somewhere deep inside this past year, I've felt these like burdens. I've always wanted to write a book. For the last 13 years, I've wanted to write a book. I've journaled about this, this life and mostly the pain. I've journaled about it. And a few months ago, I was like, I have got to do this project. Like, if I don't do this, I'm going to have regrets. And, with what time? I have 2 toddlers at home and a company that's growing and clients that call you at all hours of the day, and you're just like, and a husband, where do I do this? And so I went to Joey and I said, my husband, I was like, I need to do this. I feel burdened by it. If I don't get this out, like I'm going to combust. And so he said, well, just pick a week and go, where do you want to do it? And I was like, I need to go away. I need to go in another time zone. So I picked Paris because Paris has always been inspiring. I love Montmartre, the artistic square where, Renoir and Van Gogh and Picasso, like they all lived and thrived there. Kind of like Midnight in Paris, the movie. I'm like, this is my space. And I know I've been there enough where I won't be tempted to like go sightsee. I just need to hunker down in a coffee shop, bistros, with a cup of coffee and a wine at night and like just hunker down and write. So I packed my carry-on bag. This was a month and a half ago. Packed a carry-on bag with all my journals. And it was super heavy. I mean, books on books on books of stuff I've already written. And I just went for 10 days and hunkered down and compiled. And a lot of it I had already typed out. So I just went and spent 10 days. I didn't finish, but I have about 200,000 words.
Oh, wow.
Jeez.
Yeah, wow.
That's
31
remarkable.
chapters are written. And I'm to a place where if I do one more hunker down session, I could definitely get it to an editor. But people ask me, like, what's the book about? And my answer is death, divorce, and forgiveness.
Yeah.
And it sounds, and then they go, oh, like but there is redemption in it.
Oh, sure.
Of course.
What's the name of it? Do you have a name yet?
I have a title idea.
Okay. Are you keeping it?
I think so.
Okay, that's fine.
Yeah, I want to keep it under wraps until it's closer. But it's it's good, I think.
Was it hard to revisit some of that?
Absolutely.
Reading through journals and kind of going back to what you were thinking in that moment?
Yeah, it took a level of courage and bravery because if you look back at the pain that you have in your life, you can either just kind of push it away and not address it. But I was like, I was ready to sort of open it back up and say, and I didn't want it to go too far in my life where I couldn't feel those things anymore. I knew that like the time is now. I need to do this now because if I wait too long, like I want to be able to relay the feelings that I had in those moments because the entire goal of it is to help people. And if someone can pick up my book and they're going through divorce, they can see a light at the end of the tunnel. They can feel that it's going to be okay. You know?
Yeah.
And when you're in that moment, you need to hear that, and you almost can't hear it. But if you see someone else's story, it can you can latch onto a sense of hope. And same with death and forgiveness. So all these different, I have 4 boulders that were sort of holding me down. It was losing my mom, losing my grandmother, which felt like losing my mom again. You know, my dad, and betrayed and cheated, and he had things. Even though he is a good dad, he loved me, but the way he treated women was not a good role model. And then I married someone like my dad, which is like, we all do that.
Sure, yeah.
You know? And so those were my boulders that were sort of holding me down. And I always I guess I just knew I needed to get past it. But the things that were the hardest to open back up was not the divorce, not even necessarily the loss of my mom, but it was my dad. Because I just lost him last year. And it's like the trauma that we experience as children, it just is hard to shake, you know, and you don't realize it's, if you don't constantly work that muscle, forgiveness is a muscle, you know, and you have to exercise it or it will grow dormant and hard and your heart will get bitter again. And so that was the hardest stuff. Those were the chapters that I would call Joey in tears and say, this is hard.
Yeah, wow.
This is hard. But if it's hard, that means it's good.
Yeah.
Right? And so, I'm passionate about getting this book out. Yeah. It makes me happy.
Yeah, I can tell. I'm a little bit awestruck thinking, wow, that is really powerful. And everybody should probably do that once, whether you finish or you get to this publication or just print stage. It seems very healthy.
It is. Yeah. It's kind of just like, let's address our things because that's where we grow. Yeah. You know, and we live in such a world where it's easy to just brush it all under the rug. It's not, if we're doing that, we're not our best self for ourselves, for our team, for our family, for our children. Yeah. And I look at Sunny, she just turned 5, and in 1 year, I found, when I was 6, I found out my mom had cancer, and I look at her and I'm like, wow, I was almost her age. And so these cycles of life and events that happen, I hope that my book will help my own children too.
Yeah, absolutely.
So it's exciting. It's definitely like a passion project, you know. But if one person can be helped by it, it's worth it.
What? So when you finish, is there a pathway after that, or what? How do you? I don't even know the world, right? So I'm like,
you can self-publish or you can find a publisher, and I haven't decided which I'm going to do yet. A lot of people will tell you, and I've talked to them, like, you should get a publisher first. They'll give you an outline, and then you write it. And you're like, no, I'm not doing this for the publisher. I'm not doing this to be a New York Times bestseller. I'm doing this because this is what I need to do. Yeah. So I won't be told how to write it.
Sure.
Now, I am happy to hear feedback once it's together, and if someone will need to get it, so it'll get edited, right? So I'll send it because someone else needs to see the perspective, and then I'll be so open, as I am with design and architecture, to hear feedback. That's like, I need to get it out the way I feel it, and then have someone remark on it. So whether it's self-published or published with a publisher, I'm not sure yet. But yeah,
that's amazing.
It's exciting.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
It's a big threshold.
It is. I'm hoping to get it out into the world, at least in 2024, I think is the goal. Wow.
See? Just
you just push.
The rigor.
Yeah, it's good. I feel like it's just like, it's who I am, and I have to get it out.
Well, what you didn't say about who you are, and I believe it more now after talking to you, is your ability to recreate yourself, right? And that's real powerful. And it's not like professional, but it's this recreating yourself in a way that offers a different perspective or a different understanding of who you are. So I really appreciate that.
Thank you. Yeah, I think that's a struggle for everyone.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's like what you have to remember, like, what is it that makes you feel alive? For me, it's travel. And, it's like, you gotta, if those things are paramount to keeping you who you are. And if you're happy, then you're better for the world and the world around you.
Very true. We can all remember that.
Yeah.
As I race out.
I know, back to the grind.
Yeah.
It's easy to say it, but it is a daily. It's a daily.
Yeah, right.
Daily.
Well, I'll tell you this: as much as you've recreated, you're exactly the same person that I met years ago. Genuine, authentic.
Yeah, right. Sure.
You know what I mean? Pleasure to be around.
Thank you.
So, I mean, this has been great.
Yeah, thank y'all for having me. So fun. I feel like I could sit in here and talk to y'all.
Yeah,
all
I
day
know.
long.
I lost track of time.
Yeah.
No, yeah.
That's pretty awesome.
I'm proud
Have
of
to
you
do it
too
again.
for doing this. Yeah, creating space for people to connect. We need more of that.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Share ideas.
Yeah.
Past experiences. So thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Yeah.